So I came across this multifamily investment property that looked pretty good. Had a cap rate that significantly exceeded what was the norm for multifamily here on Oahu, but I only had to scratch the surface to see some major red flags. I'll talk about that coming up next. Hi, I'm Scott Startsman with the High Estates team and Sotheby's International Realty. Welcome to my Buyer Beware series, where I highlight strange and interesting things that I come across in the real estate market that are warning signs and things you should be aware of. I had a client looking for multifamily options recently, and I came across this listing that was advertised in the MLS. Now, this is not the actual picture of the listing, as I don't want to call anyone out, but I do want to use this as a general educational piece of things you should be aware of when it comes to buying property here on Oahu. The information in this listing is accurate as to what was shown. So what we have here is advertised as an 8-unit building. In fact, the MLS public remarks says this multiple units property offers 4 one-bedroom units, 3 two-bedroom units, and a studio. Monthly rental income is $9,750 plus $250 from coin-operated laundry for a total income of $10,000 a month. It was partially renovated in 2017, has 6 electrical meters and 1 sewer line. It also states the interior square footage and number of bedrooms differ from the tax office records. Buyers shall do their own due diligence to verify. The agent even has pro forma showing income info, net operating income or NOI, and number of units. The numbers look pretty good. The cap rate comes out to a 6.2%, which beats Oahu's average cap rate of 3 to 4%. I got this by taking the NOI or net operating income of $112,800 and divided it by the full list price of $1.8 million, which gives you a 6.2% cap rate. That appears on the surface to be a pretty good investment for here on Oahu, but there are some serious red flags that I see right off the bat. When I look at the zoning is R5 zoning and the land size is 8,065 square feet. If we look at the city and county land use ordinance for R5 zoning, it states for every home or dwelling on an R5 zone property, you need a minimum of 5,000 square feet of land, but if you have 7,500 square feet of land, you can get 2 dwellings or 2 homes that are attached. Since the land size on this property is 8,065 square feet, it would appear according to the zoning to allow for 2 attached dwellings or 2 homes. The county tax records show 2 dwellings as well, but we have 8 units. This property is not located in a multifamily area. It is surrounded by single-family homes, so 8 units seems to be a bit excessive. It also mentions a partial remodel in 2017, so I looked up the permitting for this property on the City and County Department of Planning website, and there were 2 permits that were issued in 1974 and 1975. So maybe they did a minor renovation and it didn't require permits. So let's take a look and see when the property last sold to see if we can get any info from there that would shed some light on some of my questions. Well, in 2016, the property sold and it had 5 units at the time and a totally different number of type of unit configuration. It also said the condition was in fair or needs major repair condition, so clearly it needed work, and when it was partially renovated in 2017, it was actually reconfigured without permits into 3 additional units and changed the type of units on the property. The problem with this is that it would have required permits to do this, and the zoning only allows for 2 legal dwellings. So not only does it appear the remodel was done without permits, but the units were reconfigured and 3 additional illegal units were added. It very well could be that the property at some point prior had a different zoning, and the 5 units that were there in 2016 were grandfathered to be there, what we call legal non-conforming, meaning as long as the dwellings remain there, it is allowed to stay, but if it burned down, was destroyed, or significantly modified, then you would need to conform to the current zoning requirements. I doubt it, but it's possible that those 5 units were grandfathered. So in this case, I figured the listing agent could shed some light on my questions, so I called, and he didn't want to talk on the phone, but would respond via text. And when I asked all the things that I just went over, his response was, the seller remodeled it may not be legal, but the buyer needs to do more research to see. It took me all of 30 seconds of scanning the MLS property profile sheet to realize there were some serious red flags, and less than 5 minutes of general research to figure out a lot of this property is not legal, and probably most of it isn't. Unless I do some in-depth digging, I can't tell you if the 5 units that were advertised as being there in 2016 are legal, but I can tell you the 3 extra units that appeared since the 2017 remodel are not. And I'd be willing to bet that if I did do some digging, that most of those 5 units aren't legal, and that this should be a 2-dwelling property legally, like the zoning states and the county tax records show. When I did a Google aerial view of the property, the entire property is concreted, which the city and county doesn't allow due to the potential hazards for rainwater runoff and flooding neighbors and overwhelming the storm drains, as the water has nowhere to go but off the property. Everywhere I look at this property, I see problems. My point to all this is, this property was advertised as 8 units, and the income and expense numbers were based off of 8 units. If you bought this property with the assumption that you had $120,000 in income coming in legally on 8 units, and a neighbor turned you in for illegal rentals, you would not only lose a majority of the income, but would be forced to modify the home to its legal use at your expense. It took me almost no time to realize there were problems here, but that's because I understand land use and zoning where most agents aren't taught it. In my real estate licensing classes, it was always explained that if there was something that we should reasonably be able to discover, then you should. Walking the property to look for issues, looking up zoning and past sales info should bring some of these questions to light. To bury your head in the sand and say, I don't know, it's not up to me, has never been an acceptable form of practice. Secondly, this is a really good example of making sure to verify what is in the MLS is true and accurate, and what you think you are buying is really what you are buying, and it matters who you hire to help you navigate through this process. You definitely want to make sure who you hire is someone that has the knowledge and the experience to be able to catch red flags and point out potential problems. Surround yourself with good experts to make sure you make the informed decisions and avoid costs and mistakes. Needless to say, my client and I quickly moved on from this property, but most agents aren't aware of land use and zoning. Imagine getting into escrow and paying for inspections, appraisals, and having to walk away from thousands of dollars when you realize the property isn't what you thought it was, and you can't get a loan, or worse yet, you buy this property not really understanding what it is. Let me know your thoughts below. Once again, I'm Scott Startsman with the High Estates team and Sotheby's International Realty. If you like this video, hit the subscribe button below for more content like this. You can also learn more on Oahu's housing market at highestates.com, and feel free to contact us for all your Oahu real estate needs.